Anime Impulse in Dallas. I'm your brother from another mother, Evil Aniki, and today we're talking about my recent trip to Dallas. That's right, guys. I went all the way to Dallas for Anime Impulse Dallas. Now, this was the first of its kind, the first Anime Impulse in Texas, and I was super thrilled to get the chance to go out there. Big shout out to Anime Impulse for providing the press pass, so that kind of gave me the motivation to want to fly out and take on the challenge of going to vlog and meet new people in the great state of Texas. I went to Bucky's, guys. It was a great trip. But yeah, let's talk about it. So, if you guys don't know, or if you do know, Anime Impulse is a convention that happens fairly frequently here in California. And there is Anime Impulse LA, Anime Impulse OC, and I think they also have one for like Anime Impulse NorCal somewhere. I don't know. And then they had Anime Impulse San Diego, but that was like a couple years ago, and I don't think it's going to come back. So they've bounced around here in SoCal and NorCal, but they've also had Seattle, which I didn't get a chance to go to, and I believe they had an Arizona one. And yeah, I didn't get a chance to go to that one either, but I did get the chance to go to this Dallas one. Woo! Oh my goodness, it's been a while since I've been to like a brand new convention, and I will say, it was interesting. So first of all, it's rough going to Dallas, guys. I flew out on a Thursday afternoon. I flew out on a Thursday afternoon, arrived Thursday like 11:59 p.m. So I got there close to midnight. Uh, Hung out and did stuff around Dallas on Friday. Met some friends, did some cool stuff. Went to Bucky's, all that jazz, and then I went to uh Anime Impulse Dallas on Saturday, and I was only there for Saturday. I would have liked to gone on Sunday, but I had to fly back. I had work on Monday, so unfortunately I couldn't stay any longer. So I had a flight out at 4 p.m. But I also wanted to get a tattoo, so I got a tattoo instead of going to the con. But we'll see that in another video when I talk about it when it happens. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Now, what are my thoughts on this Anime Impulse? So first of all, the convention space itself, I think it's like the K something something Convention Center. I don't remember the name of it. It's such a long name. I'm sure I'll be back. But yeah, it was an interesting convention center. I'd have to compare it sort of to the Anaheim Convention Center for all of my California people. It's kind of like a long hall and then like a long hall outside. So there's like a line and so there's like a lot of stuff. Like there's a lot of indoor space in a hallway where you can do photo shoots and stuff. It's a lot bigger than the Anaheim one, though. I will say that much. In terms of like actual space, and it's like two floors too in some areas, which is fascinating. And I do think there is another section to it. People have been telling me, you got to come out to Anime Frontier. Anime Frontier is like a big con, and same thing with there was another one they mentioned as well, but so yeah, Anime Impulse Dallas, not the biggest con. I'm gonna say this right now. First year conventions are never the biggest. I mean, they don't usually have the hype behind them. They don't have the industry connections, the local connections. Anime Impulse is doing a great job of trying to branch out to these new cities, and I will say when I was there, I did recognize, oh, I recognize that person, I recognize that vendor, I recognize that vendor, and then there was some vendors I saw who I haven't seen in a while because they moved out of state, and so it was interesting to catch up with them and randomly encountered them. There was also a few cosplayers who I've run into at AX before. And of course, the big one was Nikkei. This was their first time in Dallas for a Dallas convention. I'm fairly certain. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure this is Nikkei's first official booth in Texas, or at least in Dallas. I'm not too sure. But it was pretty cool. Nikkei had they were giving away the bags that they gave away at the Animate store here in LA. You just had to show that you had to take a photo of the booth and post it online, and then you could get one of the two bags that they're offering, the jellyfish girl or the priest looking girl. I don't librario, or I remember the other one, but of course I went with the jellyfish girl because that's the one I didn't get. I also bought some stuff from the merch booth because I had to, and they were selling some stuff there that was super cool that they didn't have at the Animate store. I don't know if they ran out by the time I got there, or if they just didn't send it over there. So I got some more acrylics. I got some buttons and some other knickknacks and some and I also got the Doro Hoppy Coat. I bought that. I picked that up for a friend, and then they also had the Doro Dollar, and they told me that the Doro Dollar towel. This is the last time they're selling this in North America. So if you have that, it's going to be a collector's item at this point because it's not going to be sold anywhere. I did see some when I was at the Animate store a couple weeks ago. I did see some there, but once those are gone, they're not going to be in the United States no more. So make sure you get them. They also had they had a list. I'm not gonna bring it over here, but they had a list of all the merch they were selling, which was super cool. By the time I got in line, a bunch of stuff had already sold out, and I was a little bummed out about that. They also had one thing that wasn't on the list, which was a Bready acrylic, and I don't know why they had a Bready acrylic. They just had a Bready acrylic. I don't know if she's new to the acrylics, but that's what they had. And the guy who was handing out the purchase sheet was like, "Here, this is what if you ask for this, they also have this." Um, but let's go back to the convention itself. So, uh, I didn't really stick around for any of the stage shows. I will say people weren't too thrilled with the stage shows. Uh, as per typical, I did see. I mean, I did see a lot of people dancing, in the K Play Fest area. But for the Anime Impulse stage show area, it kind of like they didn't separate them out. Like sometimes at a lot of these conventions, they'll separate these stages into their own little sections so the sound doesn't reverberate through the entire convention. And they didn't do that this time. You could just hear the stage show throughout the entire exhibit hall, which was a little bit of a downer. Uh, so I was not thrilled with that. Same thing with K Play Fest. Usually K Play Fest, at some of the other ones, they have it off in the corner, and it was sort of off in the corner as well. But it's just when you have one giant hall and you have music over here and music over here, it just kind of like whoosh, like that. Then they had the wrestling arena, which they did have the wrestling arena at the OC Anime Impulse Orange County. So I'm curious if it was the same exact wrestlers. I didn't really get a chance to watch it. I walked by it a few times and just heard people booing and chanting and stuff like that, so it was pretty fun. Always a lot of energy with the wrestling. I do like it as an addition to conventions. I'm not a big pro wrestling fan. I'm not really a wrestling fan at all. And I do think they could, make the wrestling skits a little bit more anime orientated, and people would really, really like it. I think like having like Tanjiro and One Punch Man go at it on stage could be absolutely hilarious instead of having, you know, random buff guy versus random buff guy. I think I don't know if they do, curated stuff like that. It doesn't look like it from what I've seen. It just looked like, typical pro wrestler type stuff. But let's keep going on. Now, with every Anime Impulse, I will have to say the line management was pretty rough. It seems to be one of the most typical things that they have like the worst time trying to manage at any of their events is their line management. There was tons of people cutting, tons of people trying to sneak in because it was just rough. They didn't. So I will say I think this was a little bit more rough than the usual events. So usually with Anime Impulse LA, they have a bunch of different entrances that you can enter in, and it's usually, you don't get funneled in through the same spot. And there's usually a dedicated press entrance as well, a press industry and vendor entrance. And they didn't really have that, or at least the security guards didn't know if they had it or not. So I had to go up and ask, and they just let me sort of get my badges, whatever, or I should say my wristbands. But all the people who were trying to get in normally, they had a giant room, a hallway that everyone was funneling into, and a lot of people were cutting, and it was just a big mess. And the security was the one handing out the wristbands, and uh, so that's kind of different versus like Anime Impulse Orange County, where in Orange County they usually have a table, and the table usually handles a lot of the wristband giving as well. I did not see that here at Anime Impulse Dallas, so I was a little sad about that. But it's hard to get staff for a new event in a new city, like so. I imagine for year two it will get better if they bring it back. I don't know. I spoke to a few different vendors who were selling stuff in the artist alley. Some people were having great success, some people weren't. It's a tough crowd. I do think there's a lot of big conventions like Anime Frontier is just literally a couple of weeks away. I say a couple of weeks. I think it's like a month away. So I think a lot of people are trying not to spend too much. I did see a lot of. I didn't go to the after party, but I did see. I didn't go to any after party. I was in town with friends, so I was just hanging out with them. But I did see a lot of stuff on Instagram of people going off to party, and it looked crazy. Oh my goodness. That's the one thing I think is big, like a big difference between like LA cons and like Texas cons is that LA cons can party, but like Texas cons will party. Uh, I think most other state con, I think California cons just don't really do as heavy partying. Uh, I don't know if it's like the cost of living is just a little bit higher, so it just makes it harder to party and have fun. Because when I was in Texas, so much stuff was cheaper. Like, I mean, the gasoline was cheaper. This Bucky shirt was like $13. If I had bought this in LA, this would have been like $50. I guarantee you. Like, it's crazy. Um, but yeah, there was just a lot. You know, it was a good time. I will say the event was a good time. I met up with a lot of people. I went to a few cosplay meetups. I will say I went to the Zenless Zone Zero cosplay meetup, and it was a little sparse. I'm not gonna lie. I got there, and a lot of the cosplayers were trickling in a little bit slower, or they just didn't go to it. They just sort of went in, and that's typical for a lot of cons. I think that's one thing that Anime Impulse is usually really good with here in LA and OC is that the cosplay meetups are usually on point. Again, I think this might just be first time jitters for an event, and a big difference here is with the cosplay meetups. Usually, all the cosplay meetups I saw at Anime Impulse Dallas for all of Saturday, they had specific photographers for all the meetups, right? So they would set up in the cosplay meetup spot with their lights and stuff, and instead of here in LA, you sort of just have everyone go up there and stand in a line, and you call it and if it's like ZZZ, you have them go up in their groups, you have them go up in different pairings and different characters and different scenarios, special requests, special outfits, etc., etc. Same thing with Nikkei. We didn't really have that for Anime Impulse Dallas. It was sort of like, and it was really hard to get any good B-roll. So typically, the cosplayers will line up, but then in LA, they'll also have all the photographers line up. And I think because there's maybe less photographers in Dallas, or maybe there's just less photographers who went to the event, it was really hard to like do that, especially when the main photographers who were doing these cosplay meetups brought their own lights, right? They had their own strobes and stuff, and so you just couldn't. I couldn't get a good angle around the strobes because it was just kind of rough. So I wasn't too big of a fan of that. I will say it's probably better for the cosplayers because they're gonna get photos, but they could have just set that off. I mean, that's basically just making it like a photo booth at that point. You could have just had a photo. You could just have someone on staff for the event just do that off on the side and not have to be in the cosplay meetup spot. That's my opinion on that. But it was still a good time. I hung around for a few of the cosplay meetups. I hung around for a little bit of the Nikkei one. I didn't stick around for too long because I was more focused on getting the cosplayers and doing my montages. They were doing trivia. I'm gonna be honest. The trivia stuff and like whenever people do the creative stuff at cosplay meetups, I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. But my camera has a hard time picking up people talking, and so it just makes it really hard for me to film. I think they're a great idea. I think the most fun one I've seen recently was at Anime Pasadena. They had a rock paper scissors race with groups of Uma Musume. I'll talk about that. It'll be in a video. Yeah, and so that was my experience at Anime Impulse Dallas. Uh, it was a big room. Exhibit hall. They could have fit more exhibitors in there, in my opinion. I think they could have had way bigger attendance as well. I don't know how the numbers were on Sunday, but Saturday, uh, the turnout was good, but it could have been bigger. I think they would have had enough room for like maybe 2 to 3 times as many people that showed up. Could have been interesting. I will say parking a little expensive. It was kind of crazy. Like the main parking lot was not open, and then the second parking lot that we went to, the overflow parking lot, was $30 for the day, which is crazy. That's like an LA price for parking. I don't know what's going on with you, Dallas, but like that's wild. Like you have all that space there to have good convention parking, and there's just like crazy parking rates like that. That's crazy. Especially since the main parking, which is kind of small, was like 17, and then the next closest one is 30. Maybe I just don't know like the good parking spots in Dallas, but like close to the convention center. But I don't know. It was a little wild. But yeah, overall, I'm gonna give this event, maybe like a 7.5 out of 10. Uh, I think it probably ranks high on the party scale. There was pretty decent cosplayers. I'm not gonna lie. Having Nikke and Zenless Zone Zero both having not Zenless Zone Zero. No, it was Zenless Zone Zero. Yeah, I was gonna say it was Z Hub, right? So it's the Z Hub was there. So I was about to say it's Hoyoverse, but it's not Hoyoverse because Honkai Star Rail had their own booth. So Honkai Star Rail, Zenless Zone Zero, Nikke all had their own booths there. I will say the Honkai Star Rail, it's usually really big here in LA, and I did see a lot of people going to the booth, but it did not have as big of a line. Same thing with the Zenless Zone Zero. Zenless Zone Zero was very popular throughout the day, but here in LA, it will have a line all day long, and it did not have a line all day long in Dallas. So, if you're looking to get better hands-on merch, definitely check out the Anime Impulse Dallas in the future. And the same thing goes for the Nikkei booth. Even though I said stuff was selling out, there was a few times during the day where I could see no line, and you could just walk right up and buy stuff, which I think is phenomenal. I think that's a great thing. I will say the Nikkei booths that I've been to for Anime Expo and Anime Impulse, they can be really challenging sometimes with how many people are doing everything there. And their booth design, they had a brand new booth design for Anime Impulse Dallas, by the way, guys, and it looked phenomenal, and I loved it. But I think that sort of, encapsulates everything I can think of for this event. They had, new Atasha cars for me to go check out, and I'll be sure to put that in my video when I work on it. And trying to think if there was anything else that really caught my eye. I didn't go to any of the stage shows. I didn't do any of the idol stuff. Uh, it's just hard to fit that into a single day thing when you're trying to run around and film and get cosplayers. And um, it did seem like a lot of the attendees were younger. I mean, that's pretty on par for most Anime Impulses. But I also, again, I think Anime Frontier is coming up, and I think a lot of the people who are in Texas go to that one because they want to party there. So like I think that one's probably gonna have a lot of the older crowd. I shouldn't say older, but more of the uh, there's more older folks will show up in general. That's my assumption. But that's where I'm gonna leave it today, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys thought of Anime Impulse Dallas. If you like it, if you hate it, if you're excited to see a number two. This is sort of just my quick recap just to get my thoughts out on the event. And yeah, I'll have a vlog coming soon, and I'll have cosplay montages coming soon, so be sure to stick around on the channel for that. But that's it for today. Bye!